y'all, and welcome to Skyrim Scripting. On this episode, you're going to learn how you can run your scripts every once in a while. Now, why might you want to do that? You might want to run some code every 10 seconds or 60 seconds or 90 seconds or hour, whatever, of the player's time in game. You may also want to run something every day of actual in-game time, something like that. There are a number of reasons why you might want to do that. Let's look at an example. And if you don't mind, let me throw on some Oblivion while we listen to that, while we go through. So a couple weeks ago on my Twitch stream, I made a small clone of a mod called I Need. It was just generally that concept, not necessarily a direct port of that specific mod. What mods like I Need do are they keep track of how much you eat, drink, eat, drink, and sleep. And every once in a while, if you haven't eaten in a while, we keep saying that a lot, it'll add a little icon to the corner of your screen and it'll give you a debuff. So maybe it'll reduce your stamina or something. Or if you go too long without sleeping, you might die, or without eating or drinking. So in that case, we needed to run our scripts every once in a while. The way that you do that is using generally one of these two functions. You can put these on any forms that you have, or on any aliases, or on any, active magical effects that you have. So if you can't guess from the name of this, this is kind of like running something every day of game time. We can register some code that will run every certain number of hours that the time passes in the game. So we'll look at that, but we're also going to mostly look at these functions: register for update and a thing called register for single update. I'm actually just going to read this out for you because it kind of speaks to a lot of what we're going to be doing. This registers the active magical effect alias or form for some periodic updates. That allows you to do something every once in a while. So the interval is only counted when the game is not in menu mode. Sometimes that's important. So if folks open up the menu, these things won't continue to run. And once the player puts the menu away, yada, 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 only this specific form will get this event. What I want to call your attention to is this is one of those pages on creationkit.com that has an important warning section. It says, using this function should be done with great care, and you should use the register for single update function instead, which we'll look at and we'll kind of consider why. Let me read out for you just so that it's here in the screencast some of the examples. So what this does is it'll allow you to register some code to run, let's say, every 10 seconds. Now, if the player removes your mod, that every 10-second handler will actually still be there, and it's going to continue to run. So we'll look at how to use register for single update to get past that. That's one of the most important things, except for this, which is last but not least. This is a very frequent cause of save game bloat and just general bugs. One of the reasons that you'll often hear that these periodic scripts, also known as background scripts, are bad, folks will say that in the community, it's because you just don't want a lot of mods that run these all the time. You don't want to have 30 mods, 100 mods that all every 10 seconds do something, because every 10 seconds they're all going to try and do that thing, and it'll slow down your game and give you some lag. So let's make a mod, because it's been 4 minutes and we haven't made a mod yet, and that's what we do on Skyrim Scripting. We always make mods. I'm just going to keep track of how many times the player jumps, and every 10 seconds we'll print out how many times they've jumped. How about that? Jump count. And in my mod organizer too, I make sure that creationkit.com is set up so that jump count is the mod that it will edit and save all of its files in, and then I can boot up CreationKit. Squeak, squeak, squeak. My table squeaks a little bit. It's so annoying. Okay, we're going to save this as jump count. And what are we going to do? Let's see if I can use this new zoom tool. Oh, there's 2 mice cursors. That might get really annoying for you. Just pay attention to the big one, you guys. I'm trying to make it so it's easier for you guys to see at home, especially if you don't have me full screen on a big old HD monitor and running this on HD. So we're going to make a new quest, and we'll just call it Jump Count Quest. We kind of always use quests to manage when our mod gets installed and when players load the game when we want to perform actions like that. So this start game enabled, run once. We might want to just make a regular script, or we might want to do what we usually have is a player script that's attached to the player that allows us to do something when the player loads the game. I think in this case that's not as important, but we'll put our code on a player script. So this is what I always do. We've done it throughout the screencast series a million times. We do player ref, fill type specific reference, select forced reference, cell any. It pre-populates this with player ref, and then we can go over here and we can add some scripts. So I'm going to add a script. I'm just going to call it like jump count player script or something like that. Boop boop. Jump count player script, and it needs to extend a reference alias. Coolio. Cool. So remember, this will be a alias. You can register for update on aliases, which is this, or you can do it on forms, which would be if we had gone to scripts and added a main quest script, that would be a form, and then we could have spells with active magical effects. But what we want to do right now is we've got that script. Let's actually close out of stuff and open up everything in Visual Studio Code. And we are back. We've got everything open up in Visual Studio Code. Here is our script. So what are we going to do? Whenever you install the mod, we'll use onInit for this. We'll register for update, which will allow us to just print out how many times the player has jumped. That's our example. It doesn't matter what the code is. You can put your mod's code in there. So let's start with event on init, if I can spell. And reminder, this will run whenever your quest alias gets filled. And in the case of a start game enabled player script, this can represent when the mod gets installed for the first time. So this runs when the mod gets installed. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start registering to listen for something every 10 seconds or so. So we type register for, so all kinds of things here. Update game time, single update game time. So we're just going to start with this one, which says registers on update events every X seconds, where X is the interval. So there's the interval. So we'll do something every 10 seconds, like so. And now that will run your on update event. Event on update. So we just define that. This runs every 10 seconds, or whatever is defined by register for update. Coolio. So right now we could let's print out something in the upper left. Debug notification. Hello. And I want something changed. I'll say the time is. And I'm going to print out this variable that is often just used for getting the current time on the player's actual system. You can use utility dot get current real time. I'm just doing it so we can see something change every time. Cool, let me open up this in game. Alright y'all, in game, and let's look for notifications. There we go. Hello, the time is, and that just keeps going up and up and up. Let's watch for it one more time. 10 seconds. Cool. So we made a thing happen every once in a while. Now, Should I show you the way to do this so that you are more safe with your mod deinstallations, like they gave a warning? Sure, I'll show you the way that most folks will actually do this. Instead of saying register for update, use this other function called register for single update. Come on, there we go. Registers a single on update event after some amount of seconds. All scripts attached to this alias will get it. Of course, this means you don't need to call unregister for update, because if you want to stop a register for update at some point, what you have to do is you have to say unregister for update. So the two ways to kind of do this are register for update, and then at some point when you want to, you can unregister for update and that'll stop going. Or you can do this instead. Register for a single update. So say, please run this in 10 seconds. And then in 10 seconds, the thing will run. And it just runs that once. And that's it. Unless you want to continually run it, you'll have the event itself say, hey, in 10 seconds, run again. We do it this way. This is just best practice and really how you should do it. Register for single update. Oh, I do it both ways. 10 seconds, we'll do it that way. This will only run this section right here once. So you just do it like this. Thanks, loud car outside. You're really great for my screencast. Register for single update way up here, and then run the unupdate, and then after the code runs, it'll register itself for update. There are a couple benefits to this. One is just when someone uninstalls your mod, you won't have that thing out there that's always trying to run some code that doesn't exist. This also has the benefit of, instead of running exactly every kind of 10 seconds-ish, because it'll be ish, your code can run, which could take a millisecond. Your code could take multiple seconds to run. And then only when your code is done running will you then register it for another update and say, now my code is finished running. Now run 10 seconds later. Does that make sense? Once your stuff is done, you'll register, which is a lot nicer. So this is how we're going to do it, and let's go ahead and track when the player jumps. Now, I was going to use like conditions for this, but actually the easiest way to do this is just keep track of whenever the player presses the jump key. So we're going to use a different event. This one is register for key, and we actually need SKSE for that one. I'm going to pull in SKSE. Like so, if you're using Papyrus project files. So now I can register, give it a moment while SKSE loads up, for, we'll get our there we go, register for key. Registers a on key down or on key up events for a given key code. I'll have an episode that focuses just on this. It'll be a really short one. I'm planning on doing a super short series of really quick episodes instead of these kind of longer ones that I usually do. It's the next upcoming series, but just hold on and wait for it while I finish some mods first. So we need a key that we're going to register for. That's going to be a controller key or a keyboard key. So how do we get that? Let's get the key that is mapped to jump. And we can do that with input get mapped key or mapped control. And so here's the description for it. It returns the key code bound to a control. This will work because the players can change their mapped keys. It looks like one of the options in here is jump, so I'm actually just going to copy that. Get mapped key for jump. Cool, and then we can register to listen for that key. A gotcha with register for key. I believe it will stop listening after you kind of quit out of the game, and if you load the player's load game again, you'll have to listen again after a load game event. So on player load game, tell it to listen again, and we'll just keep listening. So listen once the mod gets installed, and after the player loads a game, we'll also listen. So register for key. We can go ahead and say, let's do it this way. Event on key up int key code. You can find out more about this on the input script on creationkit.com. It also has a list of all of the valid key codes in case you want to map something directly to here's QWERTY keyboard based key codes and stuff like that. On key up, on key down is what I want. On key up actually will let you get how long they held the key for, which is nice. So we'll just say when you press the jump key, if the key code they pressed, and because we're only registered for the jump key, we don't really need to check that. I was going to say if the key code equals the mapped key for jump, then we'll increment our jump count. But when you use register for key, it's not like it registers for all keys. It registers for just the ones that you give it. So we know that this is a jump event. So we'll just have a count of jumps. Int jump count equals 0. Jump count add equals 1. Cool. And every 10 seconds, we'll just debug notification how many times you've jumped. Debug notification, the player has jumped, and jump count, and times. Cool, 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 cool. Let's try this out in game. And we're headed into Riverwood, as we always do. We've got our player here, default guy, and we're going to watch for the upper corner. I'm not going to jump. Let's see if we get 0 jumps so far. Cool, I haven't jumped. Let's jump around, jump, around, jump around. Don't tell me about the dragon. The dragon. Now, because I have the console open, nothing's going to run. Same should be true if I've got this open. Our thing isn't running. Let's get rid of him because he bothers me. Come on, Sven. Go away. I don't want to hear about the dragon. I really don't. I'm trying to demonstrate something else on my screencast. We'll watch the upper left. We jump 5 times, 6 times or something. And we should get that in come on. The players jumped 5 times. Cool, we've got something. For our screencast, let's make it go every 5 seconds or so. Now, that kind of just works because your code probably won't just be a debug notification, although it could be. Your code's going to run something that checks the status of the player and yada, 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 yada. If you don't want your code to run when the player is in combat, because in combat is a time when there's lots of things going on, you could always say, let's see, we're in a reference. We're in a player script, so to get the player, you can just say get actor reference. If you're anywhere else, you can say game.getPlayer. And we can just check their combat state, I think. Get combat state. And it returns an integer. If it's 1, they're in combat. If it's 2, then they're in that searching mode where people are searching for them. You could say, if the combat state, else, and if. You could just say, if it's 0. So in other words, if they're not in combat, do your stuff. Otherwise, don't. But still, if you're not using on update, you're using, if you're not using register for update, you're using register for single update. Don't forget to register for more updates. So this won't run if we are in combat. We could try that if we wanted to. We'll do this every 2 seconds. Just for funsies, let's see if that works. Okay, we're heading into Riverwood. We're gonna go punch Sven in the nose or something. Let's look in the upper left. We're gonna jump once, twice. they've jumped 0 times. Now they've jumped 1 times. We should have 3 in a moment. Jump 2 times. 3 times. Let's hit Sven. And that should stop because we're in combat. That's just like a quick little tip. If your script does a bunch, things often happen a lot in combat, so you might not want things to happen. So we're going to COC to a couple places to get rid of that combat state. Let's see if just going to Whiterun will get rid of that. Let's put away this axe. I don't know if we need to wait a moment for that combat state to change. I might just COC to Solitude Doxo 1. Let's hop around and make sure that combat state gets properly changed. And now let's take a look-see. May just have to wait for it, which is frustrating, especially because we're screencasting. Although this is a beautiful, beautiful place to be looking around. Come on, combat state. We're screencasting. There we go. The players jumped 5 times. The combat state has changed. So that's a quick little tip, but let's use game time now. So now let's have something run every 3 hours of game time, every 4 hours of game time. For that, instead of register for single update, I will do register for, there's update game time, and there's update single update game time. Very similar to what you might think, but just note that instead of using on update, those use a different event. They use on update game time. Cool. And so we say register for update game time. Now this here is in hours. This is every X hours of game time instead of seconds. So we do every 8 hours, for example. This will run that just continuously until we unregister for update game time. That's the same pair that we used before, but this is for game time instead of real time. But we'll do it the way that we're doing, and we'll use single. Register for single update game time. It's just a kind of nice way of doing things. It's just kind of best practices, if you will. And we'll say every 8 hours. Is that an integer for this one? It's a float. Right, you could do partial hours. And in our update, let's just do this. We'll get rid of this one, just to make sure that we can see things change. I'll put game time in there, and that should be it. So let's see if that works in game. And we're headed to Riverwood. And in the upper left is probably going to do a bunch of nonsense for mods that I have installed for this modding setup. But what we shouldn't see in the upper left is anything about how many times we've jumped. Let's jump 0 times. We'll just hang out here. Nothing is showing up. If we wait for like 7 hours, still nothing shows up in the corner. Let's wait for an 8th hour. Players jump 0 times. Game time. 1, 2, 3. Let's wait another 7 hours. Nothing in the upper left. And let's wait 1 more hour of game time. And now the players jump 3 times. So I think that's kind of it, you guys. We went through these 2 most important functions that I have here, running scripts every minute or day of game time. We've looked at kind of some best practices in this main script with the warning kind of update. It points out that all of these problems can be avoided using register for single update. So look at using this instead. Yeah, go out there. Just a final reminder, you should try and use, let's go to scripting reference, which is where we are. Events. Use events when you can. So try and avoid doing something every X amount of time if you can. Maybe get a little bit smart. Think about maybe registering for the sleep event and then do something whenever someone wakes up, whenever they fast travel, whenever they kind of whatever. These are usually going to be more efficient. But if you really need to continuously check something, then use register for update and register for game time update. That is it for this episode. Thank you so much, everyone. I've missed you. It's been a little while since I've been back. I've been kind of super duper busy with this whole Twitch thing. You can go to my the description below, or go to twitch.tv/Mrowper, where I've been making a bunch of mods on stream with folks and taking folks' advice and suggestions. We just made this mod together basically on stream, and if you haven't watched any of the videos on Twitch for mod authoring, I highly suggest checking out DarkFox127. The author of the Lucian mod has been doing a lot of creation kit and voice actor kind of dialogue work, and the whole team for Sky Oblivion, not the whole team, a lot of those folks, including the lead, Rebel Eyes, are all on Twitch. So just consider checking it out. Let's tune out this music a little bit because we're going to go to our own. And that's it. Love you guys and enjoy your modding out there. As I always say, happy modding. All right. Happy modding, everyone. Bye-bye.